In early 20th century New York, in the middle of booths shining with inventions and slogans about progress, a Hopi mother walks steadily through the crowd, her twin children strapped to her chest. While machines promise a different tomorrow, she carries in the fabric of her clothes the memory of a people who refused to disappear. At the turn of the 20th century, the Umatilla Reservation in Oregon feels the weight of change. Rattlesnake Pete walks among elders and government officials, listening to veiled threats. Every meeting, every wary look shows a country moving in on ancient lands, pushing his people toward decisions nobody wanted. In 1885, in Apache territory, the White Mountain Scout, known as Sergeant Jim, stands still in front of a heavy piece of equipment without looking away. While officers map out routes, he knows that every deal and every patrol affects the future of families caught between loyalty to the Army and to their own nation. Around 1900 in New Mexico, a row of pots lined up on the ground shows the work of native women who keep the household going with their own hands. In dusty markets with cold wind, they bargain with travelers, turning clay into income and making that daily routine a quiet way to keep the tribe going. In 1930s New Mexico, Navajo riders charge across an open field, following the rules of an old game the elders learned from their grandparents. Under the wide desert sky, every shout of encouragement and every turn of the horse is a reminder that the animal is a partner in war, in work, and in the stories told at night. In the early 1900s, Geronimo was already a living legend in the Southwest. After years of clashing with American and Mexican troops, his name became shorthand for stubborn courage. Veterans in uniform still breathed that memory, while younger people saw in him the tough picture of the old frontier spirit that doesn't give in easily. In 1925, Santa Fe came to a stop on a festive night in the town square. On the makeshift stage, a Cherokee singer led the rhythm like someone holding on to the family flame. Each song brought an old language mixed with everyday English, and people understood that this wasn't just a show, it was the community saying we're still here, right in the heart of that place. Around 1900 in Arizona, the daughter of Chief Alchise of the White River Apache grew up under the eye of a war leader turned negotiator. Still a girl, she already carried in the way she stood the weight of her last name. Anyone watching knew that her generation would have to keep the people's memory alive in a world that was changing fast. In 1890, on the plains of Montana, Eddie Gray, son of White Elk, grew up in the middle of tension. On one side, the Northern Cheyenne trying to hold on to their language, dances, and hunting. On the other, the March West bringing railroads, fenced farms, and someone else's laws. In the boy's eyes, the old warrior saw the bridge to the tribe's tomorrow. In 1899, Good Eagle, Wanbli Washte to his own people, represented a branch of the Oglala Lakota spread across the Great Plains. While the map of the United States filled up with lines and barbed wire fences, he kept his feathers, his language, and the posture of a chief in the making, reminding everyone that that land already had an owner before the new country raised its flag. Joseph White Bull grew up on the plains watching alliances change and promises from the Yankee government get torn up. Sitting Bull's nephew, he fought at Little Bighorn and said he brought down Custer himself. He lived almost a century watching the Dakota people be slowly pushed away from their land and their old way of life. Chief Two Sticks, known among the Lakota as Nomkahpa, came from a time when a warrior's word was worth more than a treaty on paper. They say that in an attack against the Utes, he brought down 2 horses with a single blow. And that's where the name he carried proudly all his life on the wind-beaten plains came from. Last Horse was one of those men who grew up following the buffalo and ended up surrounded by fences, tracks, and army orders. He resisted the settlers' advance as long as he could, but in the end of the 19th century, he surrendered and spent his last years confined to a reservation he had never chosen, watching the world shrink there. A Cherokee woman holds her child tightly in her arms in the middle of Oklahoma, the final destination of so many peoples torn from their homes by force. Around her, the country talks about progress, railroads, and new roads. But in that lap lies the memory of long marches, deep losses, and the quiet stubbornness to keep going. Dr. Whirlwind, also called Charlie Saplish and Pi Shamkine, walks among the dry hills of Oregon, carrying on his body the marks of life on the Umatilla Reservation. While the government talks about civilizing the region, he keeps holding on to stories, old prayers, and the quiet pride of the Cayuse people who still refuse to disappear. Mrs. Thunder Bear, a Lakota woman, serves as a bridge between her people and the agents of the American government. In the middle of the era of reservations and broken treaties, she keeps the elders' words and puts them into English, trying to protect the dignity of the Sioux when the land is already slipping from the tired hands of the parents and the children growing up there. A Blackfoot woman, in a heavy coat and felt hat, holds her child close to her chest. While the boy looks at the scene with curious eyes, she seems to be sizing up the world around her, in a time when hunters, soldiers, and farmers were closing in on the territory and changing the life of the whole tribe on the Great Plains forever. In Lapwai, Idaho, around 1900, Nettie Morris, a young Nez Perce woman, leans against her doorway like someone guarding her own story. Her embroidered dress, beaded necklace, and carefully kept braids show that even under pressure from white people, she keeps her roots firmly in the soil of the American Northwest, where her family stands its ground. Around 1910, the Tlingit leader Anatlas wears a Chilkat tunic made of wool and cedar fibers, full of figures that tell his family's lineage. When he steps into view, every symbol announces that this is a chief from the Northwest coast, used to leading rituals, alliances, and important decisions for his people. In Raleigh, Montana, in the early 20th century, Duncan MacDonald, a Flathead leader, poses next to his wife, Mary Agnes, as a couple carrying 2 histories in one home. The son of a Scottish man and a native woman, he uses his European last name to negotiate, but never lets go of the memory of the people he defends with firmness and honor. Around 1880, 2 Apache women rest in front of a simple shelter made of bent branches, surrounded by the dry land of Arizona. Not far from there, the scarce water guarantees food, family, and faith in the next day, while the Old West still seemed like a place without clear laws, but was already feeling the advance of white settlers and the railroads. Out on the western plains, a white man reaches out his hand to a Cheyenne warrior. The 2 stand face to face, as if weighing in their eyes decades of broken promises, stolen land, and disappearing buffalo herds, trying to hammer out a quick deal on ground marked by blood and mistrust that no one there knew if it would last. In the heat of the southwestern desert, a young Apache woman walks with a straw basket on her head, carrying the water she took from the river. Every step she takes keeps the village going, in a world where a dry well decides the future of the family, the herd, and tradition. It was 1916, and for her, the burning sun and the wait had already become a daily routine. In the early 1870s, a small group crosses the West, measuring rivers and valleys for the government, dragging behind them an A-shaped travois loaded with tents, food, and instruments. For many cowboys, that looked like just more people putting down on paper lands that before were nothing but open range, with the frontier getting smaller. Around 1870, Asau Tau Ka, known to white people as White Horse, poses wearing the Pawnee Nation's formal clothing, used to guiding army officers on campaigns through the West. 2 years earlier, he had already led explorers to the rough Yellowstone region, opening the way for maps, trails, and new outposts. Pabo was born among the Comanche, on the land that later became Oklahoma, at a time when the government was pushing tribes away from their homelands. He came into the world in 1911 and lived through cars, wars, and reservations, trying to hold on to old customs. He vanished from the official records, leaving only the trace of someone who walked against the tide of the 20th century. In 1879, Modisi was a young Hopi woman in Walpi, Arizona, living up on the mesas while the American frontier pushed forward. John Hillers captured her calm way, her people's clothes, and the patterned cloth behind her, material made in the service of Washington to show how those people kept house, faith, and routine in the desert. Geronimo, the Apache leader who stood up to the expansion of the United States, ended up standing in a studio in 1905 in front of Edward S. Curtis. In the portrait, he stares steadily ahead, hat, scarf, and rifle at his side, an image from the series The North American Indian, meant for a white audience and now a reminder of the harshness of the western frontier and the old armies.